We are so fortunate tonight. We have Mobile's police chief on with us tonight, as well as Attorney Bill Island.
Yes.
They're both here tonight taking your questions. If you have any kind of legal question or a question for the chief of police, phone number is right there at the bottom of your screen, 877-622-1548.
Yeah, I'm chopped liver tonight compared to the chief, so I'm just kind of window dressing tonight.
Well, Chief, we were talking about the response to the protests last Sunday, and as we were watching the live feed in the newsroom, we were noticing that there wasn't really like heavy police presence downtown. You saw some people on the mounted units, and you saw some officers maybe directing traffic downtown, but it was a different approach, it seemed like, from what you saw in other cities where you automatically kind of have this militarized approach from a department where they're already in riot gear, and it almost seems like that creates a target for protesters. But then when things turned and you did have a situation that needed to be addressed, I mean, SWAT team was there right away. It was like they were kind of waiting in the wings. Can you talk just a little bit about the preparation that the police department had for last Sunday?
So Andrew, oftentimes we talk about when there's a potential critical incident occurring or may occur in Mobile area, we always talk about that there's a contingency plan in place for MPD. We often don't discuss what that plan looks like because when we're on the offensive, we don't want the defense to already have a strategy. But our goal, again, we had the luxury of watching things unfold in other cities across this country, and so it gave us some time for preparation on how we want to put things in place and how we would like to respond. And we did notice that in some places, because of the high visibility of law enforcement in those areas, that it created the opportunity for conflict to exist between the two. And so our goal has always been to try to make sure that when we're dealing with crisis is not to have an overabundance presence of law enforcement, but to make sure that we've got a large enough contingency available to respond at a moment's notice, so that we can kind of quell any type of incident without any real civil unrest. And so the goal is to always just try to make sure that in our planning stages, make sure that we're able to respond with and have allow people to have an exit route too, because many times when you're creating strategy, once you box people in, only thing that can happen is contact. And so our goal is to always try to provide people with a means and a mechanism to retreat or regress.
Mm-hmm.
What? Andrea, I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
Chief, unfortunately, I believe that, what you see on social media and you see on the news, that a lot of the rioters and people that are looting and things of that nature are getting lumped into the peaceful protesters. Can you speak a little bit about that as far as the way the police department views those different groups differently, and if you have any thoughts on, again, either the media or social media lumping all of those people into one group, which I believe is unjust to the peaceful protesters.
So I would agree with you that there are a very large contingent of peaceful protesters out there, and unfortunately you have those individuals that are agitators, and they depend on that group of peaceful protesters to provide them cover. And so our goal is to try to, as we are watching things unfold, try to identify those individuals that are in the crowd that appear to be the primary agitators, those that potentially we need to maybe try to keep eyes on through some means or mechanism of having an undercover or somebody be available to just kind of follow that person as a protest is moving. Because again, we don't ever want to employ forceful means of controlling individuals, and particularly on those individuals that are protesting peacefully or acting appropriately. And unfortunately, those that come there with the mindset of being the agitators, they will throw the rock and hide their hand. And now it looks like the police is being overly forceful on that crowd of individuals that are there peacefully. And so we just continue to try to watch those things and get better at how do we identify those individuals, gathering intel. Mobile has been, in at least the last 6 years in particular, starting with Director Barber as the chief, making sure that we do a lot of pre-planning, identifying potential individuals that may have a desire to create chaos in our community.
Chief, we had a question here. Ron from Robertsdale is asking, can anything happen to the city for removal of statues? Obviously, this is in reference to the Confederate monument that the mayor ordered last week to have removed in Mobile. What would you say to his question?
I'm not sure, but I think that there was at one point when the issue came up before that there was a order or an executive order giving at the governor's level, if I'm not mistaken, about the removal of Confederate monuments. And so I don't know without doing some research at what the status of that is. That still an executive order that was put in place. So I think that's something I'd have to do some research on, and maybe could get back with you and maybe get it to the network and you can get it out.
Yeah, I think that there's a fine. I think it's a fine that the city can face, but I also think that there's some language maybe in there too about if the city feels like there's a imminent threat maybe to this, or to preserve it. If something needs to be done to preserve it, it can be removed. So I think that there is some loopholes.
Andrea, I know the Attorney General from the state of Alabama, they have filed a lawsuit against the city of Birmingham for removal of some of the statutes up there. And I know that as of Friday, they were contacted. The Attorney General's office was contacted, and the last thing I heard, and maybe something's come out since, was that they're still looking into it, but nothing had been decided as of yet. So we'll see what happens. But again, I think that's just that's an easy fix. It's not like the statute has been melted down. I think it has been preserved, and we'll see what happens.